I'm a multiracial person. I feel almost as though my color in America is a mark of shame.
On this episode, the client shares her experience as being multiracial and how she has been racially abused severally.
I really struggle when I'm in the US, just with the dynamic here, feeling like I'm kind of forced in a box, and it's been quite a struggle. It's difficult to be a multiracial person anyway, because there's several different cultures that live in me.
Yes.
And I want to express them all, give voice to them all, and I want to live authentically.
The influence of the people around her makes her feel not welcomed. With the help of our therapist, we get to know how it all started and some coping strategies for people battling with identity crisis.
But there's this social pressure that I feel from my community to suppress parts of myself, and I resent my community for that.
I'm so glad that you came in today. I know we've been working a bit, and you have some concerns that you're still working on regarding being multiracial and all the details. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about what has been top of mind lately for you?
So I'm a multiracial person. On one side, my grandmother was a survivor of the Shoah, so Auschwitz. And on the other side, I'm Parisian, Haitian. And I really struggle when I'm in the US, just with the dynamic here, feeling like I'm kind of forced in a box, and it's been quite a struggle. I mean, ever since I was very young, I went to these very wealthy private schools, K through 12, and felt pretty othered there. So it's been kind of hard.
Okay. So that's something that, was happening early in your formative years, and it has likely shaped you and your interactions up until this very day. Can you kind of talk about how your interactions have been with classmates, people, dating?
So my husband's white. We've been married 16 years. My kids look white. They're not, but they look white. Let's see. I guess when you say interactions, what comes to mind is I remember going to this shop in downtown Baltimore, shopping for a new menorah. And the guy was like, he was so rude to me. He was like, you knock one candle off and you can use it for Kwanzaa. And so I turned around and in perfect Hebrew, I said to him, Manizrat lech pamor, which is a very nasty, nasty thing to say to someone. But he understood in that moment, like, just because I'm brown doesn't make me less of a Jew.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. I don't know what you said to him, but it's great that you advocated for yourself and stood up for yourself in that moment.
I felt like a jerk, though. I called him a pretty nasty name in Hebrew. I met the challenge because it felt like an aggression. It was surely a microaggression, what he said to me. But I feel really just kind of, I don't know. When I lived in California, I felt like super, super dialed into my shul. But over here, it's a totally different thing. I feel like the community is predominantly Ashkenazi, and even though I'm not Sephardic by blood, I feel like I fit in more just because of the way that I look.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm understanding. You're non-Sephardic, but here you feel like you fit in more with the Sephardic Jewish population?
In Los Angeles when I lived
Oh,
there.
in Los Angeles. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But, and you're living in Los Angeles now, right?
No, I'm in Maryland.
You're in Maryland, so you're
Yeah.
in Maryland, of course. You're in Maryland, and there are more Ashkenazi Jewish people here, so it's okay. I see. It's harder to blend in, I guess.
I don't even try anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel so much hostility in those spaces that I just avoid them, which is rough. I just joined a collective for Jews of color online, but it's been like a struggle my whole life. And I've felt like this pressure to relinquish one side of my identity, and I can't do that. I just can't do that. Like, in my heart, I feel like I have to hold space for both my grandmothers. They have to both live through me. And there's something about the social pressure here on the East Coast that doesn't feel good.
Okay. All right. So you're in the Jews of Color group, and how is that helping you to navigate here on the East Coast?
Well, I certainly, we haven't had a meeting yet, but it does help me to feel more a part of a community, because I don't want to like allow social pressures to make me feel divorced from myself.
Right.
But I do feel that way very much, and I've been considering, like, should I go back to LA? Should I up the family? Should we go back?
Okay. Have you shared those feelings with your family?
Yeah.
Okay, and what do they say? How do they feel about that?
My husband is on board with whatever. He's just very easygoing. Kids are the same way. They feel like, well, whatever you think is best, we'll do that. They're very supportive, but I don't like it. Like, I don't like feeling like the only way that I can feel dialed in to a community is by turning tail and running.
Okay. So it sounds like you made a decision to stay here and live out who you are through both sides of your family, through both grandmothers. Do you want to tell me a little bit about the Parisian Haitian side?
Yeah, my family still lives in Paris. I speak French. When I go there, I feel a sense of freedom that I definitely don't feel here in the US. And I'm very Parisian, culturally speaking. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like perhaps you have more than just one option for a place where you feel as though you belong.
Oh yeah, for sure. My family has quite a few houses in Paris, and they're empty. I mean, I literally could just pick up and go there. But I don't want to do that either, because my husband's French is not good. My kids, not so good, and I don't think they would enjoy that. And also, whenever we go, my husband really struggles.
Okay.
He struggles with the language and the culture, and so I don't want him to feel uncomfortable.
Okay. Well, that's very considerate of you. It sounds like you definitely put others first most of the time, if not all the time.
That's a pretty astute observation, and it holds some water, holds some weight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you are having to decide what's best for you as well as your family. What do you think is the way to, I don't know, I guess it seems as though what's best for you is also best for your family, I would think, because when you're thriving and in the environment that works for you, that's, helping you to be your best. And I would imagine maybe a lot of the household management might be on you, and
my husband does a lot of that.
Okay.
Because sometimes there are some things I surely do, but he's pretty strong. He's a pretty strong leader.
That's wonderful. Okay. So even though there are other possibilities that might work better for you, but not quite as well for the family due to language barriers, you're here. You're on the East Coast. And so we have to look at, how do you make that work?
It's very tough. I think I'm just, it's difficult to be a multiracial person anyway, because there's several different cultures that live in me.
Yes.
And I want to express them all, give voice to them all, and I want to live authentically. But there's this social pressure that I feel from my community to suppress parts of myself, and I resent my community for that.
Oh my, okay. That's got to be very difficult. Having to suppress yourself and who you are.
Yeah, very much so. It is. It's quite difficult. I sometimes feel it's bizarre to me. Just when I make the shift from Europe to America,
Yes.
The American mentality I struggle with. There's this, all of this stuff, all of these expectations, this like unwritten rule book, I think, that comes with being a person of color. And maybe because I don't match what the majority thinks I should be, there's this feeling of being out of place.
Okay. So when people approach you, okay, what groups of people are you speaking of that make you feel out of place? I want to know each group.
Oh, well, it depends on where I am.
Okay.
So definitely if I try to go to like an Ashkenazi shul on the East Coast, that's going to be weird for me. People are going to ask me if I was born Jewish, which I was. They're going to want an explanation, which I'm tired of giving. And they're going to like try to vet my authenticity.
Wow.
And that's going to be annoying to me.
Okay.
Or they're going to assume that I'm Sephardic because I'm brown. And that is just, it's happened so many times throughout the years, over and over and over and over. It's tiresome. And it's been nice to join with a community who has similar experience as myself. But when like looking for community, it makes it more complicated.
Okay, and how long?
That's one group.
Yeah, that's one group. Okay. What are the other group?
So this is kind of odd, but in Paris, if I'm in Paris, I'm going to get a lot of slack that's going to be political in nature. Asking, like, I was sitting in a cafe and I said very politely, "Je voudrais un menu, s'il te plaît." I'd like a menu, please.
Yes.
And the guy goes out to the what is it called? Sidewalk. Goes out to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Gets the huge menu that was on the sidewalk, brings it in, slams it on my table, and asks me why I allow something that's going to become dictatorship in my country, in America. So there's like there's a sense of like political otherness that comes through in Paris.
So somehow he assumed you were American. I mean, he wasn't 100% wrong. And then wanted to get into a political argument.
Yes, and that's pretty common because my French is accented American. So
I see. Okay.
So there's like a sense of, okay, what's wrong with you for this? So lots of political questions in that country. And then I feel like I also get a little bit of strange looks in the African American community. Because African American people, I have a little teeny bit of Puerto Rican, but most people think I am Hispanic because of my phenotype.
Okay.
So there's just a sense of who are you, I think, when I enter a space and I have to explain who I am. And this has been a lifelong, thing where I go from space to space, and these are my cultures, my people. And I feel often a sense of otherness in those spaces.
Okay. So I'm just curious, in the African American community, is anyone welcoming you at all?
Yeah, I went to a church once. People were very warm to me. But they also asked who was I and why was I there? If I was related to someone, or lots of questions.
Okay.
Also, in my school, I went to private Catholic schools and was usually predominantly Caucasian there.
Yes.
So I just often was alone, spent lots of time eating in the lunchroom by myself, things like that.
All right. That's really a difficult life path that you've been existing in. And it almost sounds like you don't really fit in any space, as you said.
I feel at peace with my Parisian family.
Okay.
There I do.
Okay.
And also with my husband and my children.
Okay. So you have two places where you feel welcome, you feel understood, loved, and at peace. Okay. What precisely is it that you would like to have happen for you in your life?
Précisément, I would like to be able to carry a sense of belonging internally with me wherever I go.
Okay. All right. So perhaps you have to rewrite the narrative.
How so?
Well, perhaps you are a person who is a part of a lot of places, and to them you're a stranger, and that part you'll have to accept to some extent. But perhaps your role in those spaces, whether you like it or not, is to show them, I guess ultimately, that you come from a place of love, from a good place.
I don't think that's true about myself. No.
Why don't you think you come from a place of love?
Because I think that would mean suppressing the anger that I feel when there's microaggressions against myself.
Okay.
I don't think that I come from a place of love towards oppressors. I have very little tolerance for them.
Okay. Okay. All right. That makes sense. And I guess I have this thought that, oh, perhaps you can change their mind and their hearts in some way.
This is not my responsibility.
Okay.
They can burn in their own hate.
Okay. All right.
This is like a French mentality. I think it's very American to try to love one's oppressor. We don't do that.
Okay.
Especially Haitian. We surely don't.
Okay. All right. So how do you expect to feel better when you're carrying that with you?
I think for me, the way to feel best is to be a part of liberation, the liberation movements across the world, to sort of embrace that part of my purpose is to help people free themselves. I'm a feminist, and so that is a big part of who I am.
Okay. All right. And what are you actually doing towards that goal?
Quite a bit. I've written a book. It's to
Okay.
be published next month. I'm also very, very active in the anti-trafficking movement.
Okay.
I identify as an abolitionist. So I have been abroad in the Middle East, and I have put my body between the bullets and the oppressed.
Okay.
This is something that I believe through and through, that people have the right to be free.
That's an excellent, what you're doing is excellent work. It really is. Would you say that you personally feel as though you're healing and able to, feel more like yourself in those uncomfortable spaces because of the advocacy work that you're doing?
It's tough. In some ways, perhaps.
Okay.
But in other ways, I think I'm quite comfortable. Some ways uncomfortable, but other ways I think comfortable with this wound. And that this wound in some ways empowers me, drives me to identify with these other people and sees value in their lives.
Okay.
So the wound is almost, it's a bit open, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not a wound that's necrotic.
Okay. Okay. So, what do you feel I can do or help you with in therapy? Why are you in therapy when you seem to have, for the most part, a lot of coping mechanisms and ways to handle how you're feeling? You are comfortable with the wound. Why do you come to therapy? What are you seeking?
I think my hope is you can help me integrate this wound a little more.
Okay.
I feel a bit divorced from myself. Like I'm living well with this wound. I'm quite comfortable with taking the position of a feminist. I have no desire, none, to love people that are doing horrible things in the world.
Okay.
I don't feel it's my obligation. I want nothing to do with it. But I do. I think my love for people that are oppressed is something I may feel a tiny bit of guilt about. Like I feel almost a little bit of pressure in some ways that I should identify with the wrongdoers in the world, that I should feel more compassion for them. I don't feel it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to understand, though. You say that you love the oppressed people. You feel somewhat guilty for them,
Mhm.
and then you turn to saying, maybe I should love the oppressed people. How are the two connected? I'm not quite sure I'm understanding.
I think that that's part of the conflict here that I don't myself understand, is the sense that maybe to be a better person, I should find a place within myself that loves people that are doing horrible things in the world. But I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
But I feel like the messaging, that I get quite a bit is that I should find a space within myself to forgive, to forget, to pretend. And I just don't have it.
Okay. So yeah, no one should ask you to forget or to pretend. And even forgiveness is difficult, but maybe the way to bridge the gap between the oppressors and the oppressed, and when I say bridge the gap, I mean find common ground or a way for the oppressors to start sympathizing and working for and helping the oppressed. Sure, I mean, you could try to take it by storm and legislation, but in order for the oppressors to really see the plight of the oppressed, I think that there has to be I'm trying to think of the correct word. There has to be an exchange of energy, knowledge, perhaps some compassion. And here's how we do this. Whenever there's someone who's oppressing or someone who's in the wrong, if you're able to understand how they got to that point, then you can have empathy. And it works both ways. If they can understand how and remember and learn how the oppressed got to the place that they're in, that was structural in nature, and and there was this intergenerational transmission of oppression. They're not just lazy and poor or whatever the case may be. They're not making bad choices simply because that's what they want to do, but this is something that was handed down by what society did to their family generations ago. And if we educate people and show them how things are, then perhaps they can have empathy towards the oppressed. It's a two-way street. Even the oppressors, they've been sold a lie. They've been, if you want to stay superior, you're going to have to kick other people down. And they scratch and bite to stay up. I don't know. I just think that there's got to be a place where people can meet somewhere in the middle.
This makes sense.
Okay.
It's very helpful. It's difficult though. It's very difficult. I mean, I've seen with my own eyes. It's not abstract for me. I've seen,
right.
On the ground what it looks like.
Yes.
When ISIS comes into a village and tells a school, okay, time to join up, and then tells the half, tells those that joined up to go kill the half that did not. I've seen it. And so this is it's very hard for me to hold compassion for these kinds of individuals.
Right.
They have no compassion themselves.
I hear you. Okay. Yeah, and the people that you can't reach, of course, yeah, you're going to have to get out of the way or fight them back and protect yourself. Um, I see that. For the others, there are people who are learning and changing. I guess the ones that are on the precipice of moving forward are the ones to reach out to.
You hit on something. I think you're helping me in some ways to realize that I bring into these spaces, these, racialized spaces, a warrior mentality, perhaps.
Okay.
Because I am a warrior at heart,
Yes.
more than anything.
All right.
And I think perhaps instead of coming from a place of compassion, as you say, perhaps if I go into these spaces with, rather than the warrior part of me is often very forward. It's kind of obvious, I think. But maybe there is a way to where the compassion as the predominant kind of feature in those interactions, and perhaps that will help.
It has helped, in different spaces in the past. Those folks that come in on the front line forcing devastation and, they're being forced as well, because that saying, well, I'm just going to say it, shit rolls downhill, if you look at what's happening with Russia and the Ukraine right now, you have Russian soldiers. When Ukraine came in a few weeks back, they were so unprepared, so unwilling and unable to even fight. They didn't want to fight. They were forced into it. They were pulled out of their schools to do that. It's really the power, the heads of power that have to be interacted with, in a sense, because they're the ones controlling everything.
Are you a believer in peace?
I am. I'm hoping for it all the time, every day. It's interesting. I grew up, well, not me, but my father's family. They were sharecroppers on the plantation that their ancestors lived on. And when my father was a child in the 40s, a Jewish family came to live that had just been released from the concentration camps. And they worked and lived side by side like family. They sharecropped with them. My father took me to meet the matriarch when I was 16. Beautiful woman. And she remembered my father right away. Oh, there's my boy Stevie. And so I've only grown up in my sphere, seeing people of different races coming together and being like family. That's what I hope for everyone. It's very unfathomable to me that people fight over ideals, constructs of the mind. I find that amazing, and they feel like their life depends on it, and they can't live in their identity unless they squash it in someone else. It's almost as if the people that are oppressing, they need to be rescued and saved and deprogrammed.
Yeah, that I really can relate to. I can relate to that quite a bit.
Okay.
It's really helpful to hear you say that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something unique about American society. You know, in Paris, it's not even legal on a survey to ask somebody what race they are,
Okay.
because there's a sense that this information can be weaponized and used for oppressive purposes.
Okay.
And here, it's so different. It's just so bizarre. There's so many assumptions about what it means to be a person of color in this country, and I have such difficulty relating to that.
Okay.
That notion that like, you know who I am the moment I step in a room just by virtue of the color of my skin.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't experience it anywhere but in America.
Okay. Do you find yourself having to code switch when you walk into a space and you have to kind of retrofit your speech, your mannerisms to fit the people in the room?
I don't quite know the meaning of code switching.
Code switching. So, it's typically when people of color have to be in a space that's predominantly different from themselves. And where people talk about this the most is in the workspace. Like at home, for Black people, they might speak, slang or whatever. But then when they go into the workspace, they're speaking proper English, and they know they have to switch it off and on.
I mean, I definitely speak predominantly French
Mm-hmm.
in Paris. In the US, I speak English.
Right.
I don't know if it's code switching, but I definitely feel like I can hold my head up higher in France. I feel that. Even in the physiology of the way that I carry my body, I stand straighter, I look people more directly in the eye.
Okay.
I feel almost as though my color in America is a mark of shame.
Okay.
And that's difficult for me.
Okay.
I don't feel that abroad, though.
Okay.
And also, I get so just agitated with people who have this sense that because I'm a person of color, I'm, what is the word? I am disadvantaged. I'm not in any way disadvantaged.
Okay.
My father was the chief of Homeland Security. My mother is the senior vice president of U.S. Trust.
Okay.
I will never need to work a day in my life as long as I live. I am not in any way, shape, or form disadvantaged. But the microaggressions, they still come.
Sure.
No matter where I am. And I've just kind of adopted it as my life, my life's mission to just try to fight for equality, to use my life for that, to use my life to liberate people. And that's what I've been doing. I would say it started in 2016-ish. I don't want to get too specific. I had a cousin, though, that did something terrible.
Okay.
And without saying too much, I said to myself, for every life he took, I'll save one, maybe even 5.
Okay.
And so went to this training to develop clinical skills kind of outside of the US parameter system, and learned very well. Learned techniques that are often not taught here in counseling programs and psychology programs, but learned how to do hostage negotiation. Learned this became competent enough to be sought after abroad, and used those skills there to try and save people everywhere I could. And that's my life's purpose, and I'm comfortable with it. People ask me, do you have a fear of death? I don't. Not at all. I am 100% willing to die to save other people's lives. I don't take a fear of dying with me. And it's been tested, because I've been in some situations. But in those situations where I'm working to help other people, I actually feel free. And I think it's linked to something here about racial oppression here in the US. But yeah, I think part of the reason that I was so drawn to just keep going back into these terrible, terrible situations was because I found freedom there.
It seems as though you created the freedom and you found it as you were creating it. And I get the sense that you, as you're doing this, you are healing any epigenetic markers that you incurred by way of your ancestors and whatever oppression they felt and experienced. It changed their genetic markers, their cell expression, and it went to you. And this is one reason why it's so strong within you. It's not just environmental, it's also inherited. And you are actually healing yourself on a genetic level, by a biological level, when you are in these spaces, changing the oppression, helping people to get freedom. You are also freeing yourself as you're doing that. Okay, I see. I get it.
That's very helpful. Yeah, you're definitely right on. Like, I went to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in D.C. and I walked through a train, the outside of a train that was bound for Auschwitz. And I put my hand on it, and the other hand I put on my heart, and I said, I feel you, grandmother. And, when the camp was liberated, she walked, I mean, literally walked to Paris. And she became, she later went to Haiti and she bought a bunch of land, but she became this, I don't want to give away too much of who my ancestors are, but she became one of the wealthiest women in the history of Haiti. And I hold her in such high regard. She and my great aunt, had they not lived, I would not exist. And so part of my my practice every day is to thank her for my life, and to let her know it won't be laid to waste. And I think you're right. I think I channel her quite a bit. Mm-hmm. We look so much alike too. We look so much alike. And just, yeah, I carry her with me. I even sometimes put in here, I put a little altar with some water and some butter and some pennies and fruit, which is that's from my Asian side. But I make space for my ancestors in a very big way. I want them to live and speak through me. And I think that's part of the whole not forgiving so much the oppressor. I don't think they would want that. I think my focus in this lifetime, my focus should be on freeing those that I can help.
Absolutely. It definitely sounds like you have found your calling and you're living in that. And it sounds as though you're also healing because you're living in that. So I commend you.
You make a good point that there's some power in this wound. I don't know that it needs to be sewn up. Yeah. I want my ancestors to live through me.
Right. Yes. It sounds as though your wound is a conduit for all of the experience that your ancestors have been through, what you have been through, the people that you help. It's a constant reminder and a source of power for you. So I think you're probably in the right place for you. And yes, there are burdens, that are painful. There are people that are difficult to be with. Do you do anything for your own self-care as you're going? Like, you've got to have some kind of self-care somewhere, even if it's, deep breathing. I don't know. What have you tried so far?
Oh, I've got a lot of self-care practices. I play classical guitar, so that is a really good way for me to zone in, to be very much attuned to my emotions. That's one way. I go see a lot of shows, and love the opera. Can't wait till Wagner's Cycle of the Rings comes back. I paint quite a bit. I paint landscapes mostly, but those things really help.
Okay, very good.
But I also find that I'm not really very prone to carrying a whole. It's weird. Like, I don't really carry this stuff too negatively. Like, I don't know how to say it. It's like, I think for me, the most important thing is in the moment to show up fully as myself.
Yes.
That's the most disturbing for me, is if I make myself less than in an interaction, or I suppress a part of myself, silence a part of myself. That's more disturbing to me than most things. Yeah.
That seems very congruent with everything that you've told me thus far, that, suppressing yourself just is not the way to go for you. That's not going to work. And I think the world is a better place for you always showing up authentically.
It makes me kind of mean sometimes, though, Chelsea.
Okay. Okay, so, all right. I've been working with this technique in the last few weeks to help people, and it's pretty quick and easy. If you're feeling something that you would rather not feel, so that you can just show up, you can still be effective without having to be mean. If you don't like that feeling, is that correct, that you don't actually like that feeling?
I think I just kind of mostly, sometimes yes. It's definitely true sometimes, that sometimes I'm like, oh, Jules, you did not have to say what you said to that man in the menorah shop.
Okay.
But there are other times when I'm like, when I'm a little gentler about it, that I'll say, okay, you were, I'm not quick to anger either.
Okay.
So it's mixed. Sometimes, yes, I'm not terribly fond of the way I respond. But that's not frequent. It's both. Yes and no, I guess.
Okay. Can you live with that percentage of time where you're not really responding appropriately?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't want to assume that you're trying to fix that or want to fix it, but there may be times where, I don't know, at growing up, I was always told you can, what was the saying? You can get a lot more with a teaspoon of sugar, or you can attract more bees with a teaspoon of honey than a whole barrel of vinegar. It's not about the quantity of the meanness, but the quality of just a little bit of sweetness that can really get you the results that you want.
I don't think I'm very sweet.
Okay.
Inherently.
Okay.
I think I'm more likely to bite than to embrace. But I could try. I could try to like sort of experience this part of myself.
Okay.
But inherently.
Okay. You made me think of something else though. Before I get into the sweet part of how to transform that, and we are kind of running out of time, do you ever have a mantra that you use when you're going into difficult places, like words of protection, words of power? Because the one that I'm aware of in Hebrew is ad ir on lav, which means it's all about self-protection. Do you ever have something like that?
Yeah, sometimes I say the Shema. Sometimes I have also worked with the Buddhist monks for a while, and sometimes I will do the Medicine Buddha mantra.
Okay.
Yeah, those are kind of the main ones.
Okay. All right, so let's add this quick little thing to your bag of tricks. It's a 5-layered breath. And in any moment when things are difficult, first determine what you're feeling and where in your body you're feeling that tension. And decide on what feeling you would rather have. And then as you take in your breath, make sure that it's the same length as your exhale, your exhalation. And you just cycle the breathing through evenly. And then you add to that a small smile at the corner of your lips. It's been proven that it's hard to have or hold negative thoughts if the musculature in your face is formed in the shape of a smile. So yeah, light smile, and then you breathe love in to the situation and to that part of your body that is tense from whatever issue it is that you're dealing with. And you do that for several cycles. And it really changes your perspective and the delivery of whatever it is that you start to say to people.
I feel it. I feel the emotion moving a little.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you for this. This is really helpful.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure today. And, I hope that things continue to expand for you and improve after you leave here today.
Thank you so much, Chelsea.
You're welcome, Jules.